Your hosts are the Great Order and No White Guilt. And this is the After Party. The crown winner of last week is Zero Talent, financially gifting 50 US dollars, 50 US dollars. Congratulations to you, dear brother, and thank you ever so much. In second place was Ace. Thank you so very much, financially gifting $35. Thank you, sweet sister. Congratulations to you as well. I think that's the first time you've appeared in the top two. You all may financially gift on Entropy at a cost of 15% to you, which goes to the wonderful folks at Entropy. I'll have that up running in a moment. You may also pose questions on the question widget and make statements there as well. You can also financially gift over on Cash App. There is no cost to you or us when you do so there. You will find both of the URLs in the description below. And of course, on the after party, Jared and I evenly share the financial gifts with our guests. Today we have the one and only, the man, the myth, the legend, N8errific is on tap with us. Nate, please introduce yourself to the esteemed community. For those who don't know who you are, tell them where they can find you, and then Mr. George will take us into the conversation.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. For all those of you who don't know me, I am N8errific. I started the White Wellbeing outreach team with some other members of the community, and we try to spread the lexicon and MCs of going free to regular folks out there in the world, and among some other things. I dabble in music a little bit, some short stories and whatnot, and we're trying to get more of that up and running. You can't really find me. You can email the outreach team at whitewellbeingoutreachteam@protonmail.com. If you're on Telegram, you can probably find me on Telegram, but I don't really have much of an online presence at this time.
By design, I take it, but we'll get to know the man a little bit today. We did a community focus stream a few months ago. I don't know if it was in April, thereabouts, and we spoke to a few guys, and now we're just going to have you on the hot seat because we know you do a lot, and it's a good example to show people how someone could take an active role and kind of think to yourself how you want to contribute, how you want to help organize people, help other people out, make connections. So we will get into all of that. We're definitely looking forward to hearing from you, and thank you for your time. Why don't we start, as we like to do with first-time guests, you know what I'm going to say, is to hear a little bit about where you're coming from, what led you to this, as appropriate, any kind of details about what life was like prior to coming to these awakenings about your heritage and what's going on in the world and all the anti-white policies and education and narratives. What woke you up? What started to make you say that you wanted to do something? That whole thing. We'll ask some questions along the way, but where did it all begin for you?
Let me say really quickly, as folks listen to N8errific talk about where it began for him, and I really want to just cheerlead the hell out of this guy and his wife and being in the labor delivery room and the going free. I mean, he could talk about all of that, but I want you to listen carefully because you're probably going to hear elements of your experience in what N8errific has, his path to coming to white well-being. And I want you to realize that this is an adult in the room, a real champion, somebody who's going to go down in the history books and the fairy tales for our young ones in the future, because he walked this path, came to white well-being, and then did the right thing. He took the tools that are working, and he stood up and said, I'm going to be a center of gravity, and I'm going to make it happen for our people with these tools. And that is what he has been doing. So this is an inspirational story. It should be a story that gets you motivated So please just listen close, listen for those elements that are similar to your experience in coming to the process of going free. And then you can see that you too can go on. You can work with these wonderful champions who are doing magnificent. Folks, I'm just going to pump up N8errific a little bit and everybody on the outreach team. It's such a small group. The folks who are actively going free compared to all of the white sympathetics in the world is small. And the folks who are really ardently working, and that means that you're not, that it's not day and night, and in reality, we throttle up, we throttle down in our lives with how much we're able to invest time-wise. As long as we're always doing something, you're doing the right thing. And they, using the tools that we have here, and the rest of us who contribute a little bit here and there, have achieved this colossal continental shifting success that we are seeing, to the point that reporters are apologizing for mislabeling me, to the point that conservatives are coming unglued and then losing, and then their handlers behind losing against the dialectics of going free. How much more proof do people need when you see these conservatives who are anti-white, they just call themselves conservative, come unglued, and then their handlers or whatever it might be behind the scenes tell them, look, you've lost, fall back today and fight again another day against the white race. That is all the success that you need. Everywhere else, everything else that has been around since before we were even born has been failing all of this time. How much more evidence do you need that that stuff doesn't work? So this is what a real hero looks like. And he has to have, for you folks out there, there are going to be various degrees of anonymity in your participation in service to white well-being, maybe totally anonymous, maybe partially anonymous, you know, so that like N8errific here, it's okay for folks to hear his voice and see the avatar of his choice, which is this beautiful Luna moth. He told me the name of it. But whatever it might be, you too can, and just like Lovely Porge said, be an early adopter. There are still hundreds of millions of our brothers and sisters yet to pick this up. You can brag in the future and say that you were an early adopter when everybody else was walking around like a potato head, and you can make a difference in the world. This is one man who began collaborating with others after coming to go free with a wonderful wife and a wonderful family, began collaborating with others and has achieved mountains of good already. So listen for your story as it relates to N8errifics, especially if you are brand new, especially if you're one of those wallflowers and you're thinking, well, I can't do anything because the opposition, the anti-whites have so much power, they have so much wealth. Well, think again, my friends. N8er, please go ahead, brother.
All right. So I don't know how far back you want me to start. Like, I guess I've kind of been around the community for a while, just with like different names, you know, checking out other communities and whatnot. And then just eventually, you know, kind of realize that this is the way to go. You know, the whole. Yeah, I just realized this was the way to go. I realized that, you know, other ways put us in a situation where we are screwed, where we are ostracized, where we are you know, considered just, you know, I don't know, not worth even hearing out. Whereas when we look at this as what it really is, and it's a narrative of anti-whiteism, and that's the problem, then you know, we can actually be heard out by people. But anyway, I guess before that, you know, I kind of did I'm pretty sure I've heard this story before. I was kind of more on the liberal side of things, and then found kind of conservative stuff, and then
when you say, Nate, just to pop in, when you say you were on the liberal side of things, was it default liberal, as our departed friend Simon Harris said? That was a turn of phrase that he used, just kind of like culturally there, or did you actually study and try to think through some of the quote unquote logic?
It was definitely just that's what was given to me. You know, that's what I saw on television. That's what I heard on the radio. That's what I heard from my teachers. My parents didn't really argue against it, even though my parents are more conservative. And so that's just what I was told. But there were multiple things throughout my life that kind of defended me psychologically a little bit against it. But it still just infected my entire life. The whole like anti-white narrative, commonly referred to as leftist, was just always there.
What were some things that you believed then that kind of came crumbling down, or you had to let go of when you started to get more into being comfortable, letting go of the mean pathogens and being comfortable with who you are?
It was, I guess, just the idea that everybody's the same. Like the whole idea that like we're all just this, blank slate sort of thing, and that we can all just that idea that's really what got destroyed for me. I was always raised, like, despite with all the leftist stuff, I was always raised with the idea that you take responsibility for yourself, right? Don't lie to people, be honest. If you mess up, fix it. Try to learn from your mistakes and do the best you can, sort of thing. That was stuff that was always kind of drilled into me by my father. And as I got older and just saw different things and heard different things, I kind of realized, like, yeah, I definitely think everybody should take responsibility for themselves and everybody should be a stand-up person, but not everybody's like that. Actually, a lot of people aren't like that. A lot of people are dishonest. A lot of people take advantage. And that's really the first thing that made me start kind of questioning my just default liberal position, is that not everybody's just this good spirited person,
Mm-hmm. Were there anything that you experienced directly or indirectly that was anti-white when you were younger, that kind of
Yes.
woke you up to this? Did you have a before and after moment, or was it just a series of things that all had a cumulative effect?
I mean, it had to have been a series of things. I don't remember all of them, but one thing that I clearly remember was in high school. I had a teacher who was non-white tell me to my face that white people are not human. And she went into this whole explanation of, if you break down the word hue and men, and then started explaining the definition of hue and then the definition of men, and how white people don't fit that definition. And I just, like, I mean, my response was very like, eat a fat one sort of thing. So I don't want
Do
to
you remember
repeat
what
it.
prompted that exchange to begin with? Was it after class, or was it during a
It
class?
was
What was the
just at
concept?
the end. It was just at the end of class. We were leaving. I don't remember how it came up. I think we were talking about music, and I said something about like a really good drummer, and she said her husband was a drummer and said he was really good, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. And she said something along the lines of, like, he's definitely way better than, like, whoever you're talking about. And I was kind of like whatever. And she was like, well, because we got like rhythm in us or something. And I was like, what are you even talking about? Like, we're all people, like, and she was like, well, no, white people aren't human. And that I don't remember the exact exchange, but it was, I remember
Your tax dollars at work, folks. Your tax dollars at work.
I remember that specific part, though, where she broke down the definition of human and why white people aren't human. And I was just kind of like, wait, I thought all non-white people were like these amazing people who loved everybody. Like, how can that be false? How can, like, this non-white person be telling me that whites aren't human? And that was just a question that always kind of stuck in my head. That was definitely a big chink, that put a big crack in the anti-white leftist armor that had been thrown on me over the course of my life.
What, just out of curiosity, what subject did she teach?
This was a maths class. I won't tell you the exact specific kind of math, but this was a maths class.
Hmm. What about things going on in the world, in the wider world, news you were seeing? Anything you can remember that further broke down that narrative and made you need to search for answers elsewhere?
I mean, the one thing I really remember was starting to question the whole idea that like the United States is just this wonderful, benevolent nation that's trying to spread freedom and democracy to the world. Because I would see, conflicts happening around the world and say, well, if we're really trying to help people and we're really trying to save people, why aren't we stopping those people from being genocided right now? Like, why are we not even close to getting involved in that? But meanwhile, we're in this other place, like just blowing up sand essentially. And I started questioning things like that. And that led me down a path of questioning things, and just I started looking more into, I guess, the further left ideologies first, because that was just what I found when I started looking into the wars and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that left me with even more questions, like things that just, I don't know, didn't make sense. And then I somehow stumbled onto like just I guess the mainstream right, or the gatekeeper right kind of stuff, and started looking to that. And just, I mean, over time, it just eventually led me to this point where I am now, where I feel like we got to do something, like whatever we can. And what I am going to try to do is try to help build a white positive community.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's our only way forward at this point in time.
Nate, was there anything in the leftist literature you read that seductively made sense at first, or was kind of, because I'm just asking because people experience this and we need to understand what they see in it, kind of half truths, because you need to have some kernel of truth, as I'm sure you know, to rope people in or have it seem believable or plausible. And then there's all this other nonsense that's added in. But was there anything that you had to suss out there that you can remember?
I mean, I know this doesn't really make me a very interesting guest, but not that I can remember specifically where I was like, oh, aha, like, and I just discovered that, like, this big, I guess, what do you call it? Hypocrisy, where that, like, it just couldn't be ignored or whatever. I know they were there, and I remember seeing them constantly over and over again, but I couldn't tell you, like, this specific one where I was like, okay, none of this makes sense. And it just clicked that everything was wrong. But I do remember thinking that the idea that I had, that I was grown up with, of taking responsibility for your actions and being a good person and not being honest and everything, for some reason, I guess it's from all the movies and TV and teachers and everything, that to me was a quote liberal mentality to have. And just, I don't know, I guess I saw that the quote unquote liberals did not share those work hard and get ahead sort of values.
Right.
And I think that was mainly the big thing, is like, I always thought, like, I was always told that the liberals were the good guys, and I believed it. And then I started questioning. That was the first thing where I saw, like, okay, these people aren't the good guys. They're full of it. And so I started thinking, like, oh, maybe it's the conservatives who are the good guys. And I looked more into them, and I was like, okay, these guys aren't the good guys either. And that's where I had to find something else.
Yeah. It seems to be a theme where when we speak to guests like you, Jason, I'm sure you recognize this pattern as well. It's that the people who end up, we all end up as peers and associates and doing things together to varying degrees, are all people who just followed the truth and had the courage and the conviction to just follow that compass and say, no, this doesn't feel right. That doesn't sound right. This doesn't logically make sense. and not to just fall for social signaling, not just to take the easy path to say, oh, I'm part of this group of friends now, or I'm in this environment at work or whatever the case may be, where I'm just going to go along to get along and say the right things, mouth the right platitudes so that other people can say, oh, what a nice person I am, and I'm in the club and people can pat me on the back. That you are willing to look into things that are taboo, might not be popular, it might lose you friends or whatever the case may be. It takes courage, it takes character in a time like this to be looking into these taboos and want to discover what's the real core of things. And so I always just like to point that out, to celebrate that, to thank you, because sometimes we don't hear that enough. We don't realize, especially if we've sacrificed certain things in our lives, how much character that takes, and how in the short term it might seem like you sacrifice certain things, but I'm sure you know, Nate, that in the long term it's going to have many rich rewards for you. Not to say that you do it out of some motivation for shallow pleasures or something like that, but a deeper reward I speak of course, of knowing you're doing the right thing, knowing that you're showing up and addressing things the moment in history that we were born into. You're showing up, and you're showing up in the right way. So we definitely salute you for that, and we appreciate that with everyone here. You know, that's what I saw here, and that's why I rub shoulders with the people I rub shoulders with. What about specifically being of European descent? Were those things, or specifically to your region that you grew up in the States, however long your family's been here, were there things that you were instilled with? Was it kind of always there, like water to a fish, and then you just realized, oh yeah, these things that are normal to me and feel comfortable to me, it's not just willy-nilly, it's not out of nowhere, it's because it's actually an instinct that comes from my people, my heritage, what's been passed down, what's in me. And or did you discover certain things about your heritage once you allowed yourself to think this way more? Did you research more about any aspect of American or European history, or travel, or learn more about things? What was that like, your specific understanding of that part of yourself that is your racial and ethnic identity?
Well, a big thing of it is growing up playing music. A lot of things kind of happened in my young life that completely changed the direction that I was heading, and something that I latched onto was music. And I started playing guitar at a pretty young age, and that ended up being kind of the guiding light for me, I guess. All the people who really helped me not go down a dark path were involved with me in my life based on music and guitar. And eventually,
what kind of guitar, what kind of music did you play?
Well, when I started with an electric guitar, and I played, the popular rock stuff of the time, which was just grunge. But I pretty quickly got into things like Van Halen and Metallica and Megadeth, Pantera, things like that, the heavier rock stuff with the more intricate guitar things. Then got into jazz and jam band kind of stuff, and then eventually into classical. And that's where I stayed, was in classical. Yeah, so that was my guitar journey there. But that was the big thing that kind of kept me on the straight and narrow. There wasn't really a whole lot from my family as far as like European heritage passing down the traditions, except for the normal things, like we celebrate Christmas and all the kind of Western civilization holidays. But it was never explained to me that, like, this is a part of our heritage. This is a part of who you are. This is, Christmas comes from this, and laying out everything that led up to how we celebrate it now. It was never, we celebrate these holidays because they originally fell on these equinoxes and whatnot, and now they've become coupled with these religions. There was never any explanation of that. It was just, here's what we do, I remember even asking when I was a child, I had a project where I had to find out about my family's history and heritage and what we do that is still based on that heritage. And I asked my parents, they didn't really have anything to say to me. And I went to my grandparents and I was like, I was like, well, what's our heritage? And they just said, we're British, which isn't 100% true. But they said, we're British. And I was like, okay, is there anything from our culture that we still do as a family today? And they said, we drink tea. And that was the end of it. They didn't go into it any further. They didn't explain anything. And so everything I found out about our culture and our history and our civilizations and everything is stuff that I had to come to on my own over time. And that's one thing that I'm really happy about, finding the white well-being community is now I have a way to teach my children all the things that I've learned that my parents didn't teach me, that I had to learn myself, in a way that doesn't make them the bad guy, in a way that like allows them to feel, will allow, because they're still very young, but will allow them to feel pride in who and what they are without also feeling like they have to play the villain. And and so that's one thing that I'm, regardless of what happens with this community and with me and everything, that's something that I'll always keep with me, that I know I got from this community, that I will pass on to my children.
What kind of resources, if any, if you can think off the top of your head, have you used to learn more about your heritage?
It was mostly just searching stuff on the internet, which is dangerous. That's one thing that I think we end up kind of, that I don't really like about the fact that we're forced to kind of be in the fringe, is that we kind of get lumped in with stuff that's just off the wall crazy, and I do not like. I don't know, like, I understand the want to question every single thing, but there's also like a certain extent that's just like, guys, do we really need to talk about how like the button batteries stick to your eyeballs when like you don't sleep enough and you ate a cheeseburger once? Like, it's just, I don't know. This, people are going nuts with all this conspiracy stuff, and I think we need to kind of distance ourselves from it to a certain extent. But I mean, I'm going to follow you guys' lead on whatever you want to do. But yeah, like that's the danger of looking at the internet. But yeah, I was looking at internet things, watching videos and stuff, finding videos that were just obscure things that never would show up in your suggested feed or whatever, and like, little things like the ladies who sing to the cows to bring the cows home from out in the field and stuff, just like I would stumble on things like that over time, and it just all kind of added up. And I did some reading. I got some books and whatnot, but I'm constantly doing stuff so much that it's really hard to find time to sit down and read, even though I really enjoy it.
Right. It makes sense, and definitely is similar to what other people are saying in the chat. We all have our specific details, but there's overlapping themes as well that people are recognizing. And you're absolutely right. Sometimes it's those little things, like when you said the cows. That might sound like a funny little detail or an aside to people, but it all adds up when you start to imbue not only information. Some people like to do the hardcore research and learn facts and figures, and that's great. Everyone has different strengths and personalities and things they're drawn to. But as we often talk about here, oftentimes, and I'm big on this, it's just little instances of symbols or stories, place settings, the way someone's dressed and the mannerisms, and you realize that it resonates with you. It's comfortable with you. It feels right. It feels like home. Of course, using that great phrase that Jason has coined, that is the biospirit, your own biospirit being reflected back to you and resonating with you, is that these are our instincts, these are our norms, these are the things that we've created. And when we see them in the world and we sit in an environment that's imbued with that, or we take in a story or we see artwork or whatever the case may be that holds that energy in it, there's just that, it feels right. As I said, it feels like home. Something just clicks deep inside. And we've certainly spoken to people who have, in their own way, articulated that and explained that to us. And that's very, it may seem subtle and very subjective and personal, but I want to mention that just to remind people to pay attention to those things, especially because we live in a day and age when that kind of thing is purposefully obfuscated from us. Those things are hidden from us, or we're told not to look there. There's something wrong with us if that resonates with us. But there's a lot that tells, we learn a lot about ourselves when we engage in moments like that and let it kind of wash over us. And then that can kind of intuitively lead you to other things. So why don't we've been speaking to you about half an hour now already, which flies by, but it's always, we always love hearing people's background and how they got here. And if anything else comes up to that effect, we can certainly weave that back in. But we do know, as I said in the beginning, you're an active guy, and it's always good to, Jason and I like to take the time every so often to do a show like this. We put the spotlight on one or several people who are doing things so that other people can get inspired and we can all learn from each other, get ideas. So you said to yourself, given everything you've talked to us about, you want to do something. So what are some of the first projects or initiatives you began to do? What was the thinking behind it?
Well, before I go into that, I do want to mention one other thing about what you just said about seeing things that just feel comfortable to us. Like we recognize it. And one of the big things I think I noticed with that was kind of classical traditional music and styles of dress and everything. Like I remember seeing like films and whatnot that were based in old times, and I would see the clothing that they wore, and I would think, like I think that looks nice. I wouldn't go out wearing like some frills draped from my wrist and leggings and whatnot, but like I would see different forms of dress from our people's past and think that looks nice. I like the way that looks. And then I remember hearing more and more from different people of how how gay that is. They would see the clothes and be, oh, that's ugly, that looks stupid, that looks gay, whatever. And I was like, that idea just never came to my mind just naturally, that is stupid clothing. Like that looks good. And then like hearing classical music, people say, oh, it puts me to sleep. Not me. I hear that stuff. I mean, some of it, I guess I don't really appreciate as much as others, but I mean, I listen to that stuff and I'm interested. I want to hear it, and that was kind of stuff that made me start to question, like, is this a me thing, or is this something that goes a little deeper? And
what are some composers? Who are some composers or some pieces that you especially like from the classical tradition?
Well, what really got me very interested were Mozart and Bach. And what really got me interested in doing classical guitar was all the Bach lute suites. And that's what really led me into that world. But there's lots of other, I mean, the classical guitar world's so small. But Targa, I really like a lot of his pieces. Fernando Sor, I like a lot of his pieces. Fernando Sor, I think, like, I've never heard a Fernando Sor piece that wasn't just absolutely gorgeous. And there's some newer guys too that I really like as well. Astor Piazzolla is really good. I believe he's Argentinian. And he writes the new tangos. And I actually have a funny story about him, but I think if I tell it, it might dox me. So I'm gonna keep that to myself for now. But yeah, I mean, I really like that was a big thing. But just starting to see how, like, things that were obviously part of my people's culture and heritage starting to be called stupid and lame or boring or whatever was a big thing that brought me to the realization that there's something going on here that's not right, that goes against the narrative that I constantly hear about how white people are in charge of everything and we're the rulers. And I was, if we were the rulers, if we were in charge of everything, then why would there constantly be the denigration of our people and our history in the public sphere? And that was a big thing that kind of made me question everything.
Yeah. Side note too, have you ever had the chance to go to the UK or continental Europe?
I have not, and I almost did when I was when I was in my very young 20s. I almost went to Europe for like a month. I was like one click away from buying the youth Eurorail pass, and I had organized like when I was going to get my plane tickets and started finding where there were hostels where I could stay and whatnot, because I didn't really have any money. I had some that I'd been saving up. I've been working every day of my life since I was 14, but by the time I got there, and I was so close, and just something in my head was like, dude, don't do it. Like, don't do this. Like, just don't do it. And so I didn't. I don't know why. I don't remember what made me think that. But I didn't. But one thing I would like to do if I ever get a chance and some extra money is to maybe go to Spain and study guitar for a little bit in Spain. Maybe I can find some kind of summer program or something like that with like a master or whatever, where I can go and spend a month over there. But that's gonna have to take the back burner because we've got bigger fish to fry than my desires to study guitar in Spain.
Yeah, well, if you ever have a chance to go to Europe, highly recommended. But without any further ado, what about, so what was the first initiative, and tell us the story behind that.
So the very first one was the outreach team. I had the idea. Well, actually, no. The first one was the what do you call it? I'm brain farting. The short videos that I did, the FAQs.
FAQs.
That was the first thing that I did. It's like someone said in the chat. I remember someone said in the chat like, "Oh, it would be great if we had like some short videos that explained these different ideas." And I just was like, "You know what? I'm going to do it." And I typed in the thing. I was like, "I'm going to do it. Is there anybody who can help me write them?" And Nathaniel Nelson contacted me via email and was like, "Yeah, I can help you write them. I can help you edit and everything." I was like, "Okay." And so we brainstormed the idea of what we were going to do, what the intention was, and I sent him a couple scripts, and he edited them and adjusted them a little bit, sent them back. And we kind of went back and forth on that a little bit, making sure it was as accurate and precise as to what we wanted to say as possible. And then I recorded the scripts and sent them over to Jason, and that was that. And that was the first one.
That was just to help compress some of the ideas so that people, when they get challenged with something or they need to clarify something, it's just a short, punchy video as a clarification.
Kind of. It was actually because at this point in time, I remember whenever I was looking at the chat, constantly seeing people coming in and being like, "Oh, well, you're just going to make up words," or like, "Why don't we just take control of their language and reuse their language?" And there was just constant questions of like, why are we calling it anti-white? Why don't we just call it racist? Or like, why do we say why do we not talk about the individual groups of anti-whites? Why do we just call them anti-white? And it just constant. And I was like, you know what? Like, we can come up with some short answers where when somebody comes into the chat and says, "Hey, why don't we do this?" We can just be like FAQ1. And then they can go look at FAQ1, and that's their answer. And then we don't have to spend all our time constantly telling everybody, "This is why you do it. This is why you do it." Because it just got to the point where, I mean, for me and for other people as well, because obviously they mentioned it in the chat, it would be great if we had a video response for them. People were getting annoyed just constantly having to go through that conversation over and over and over again, you know? So
have you ever
I figured
utilized that in real life, person to person, with someone in front of you who's having a little debate
like
or conversation with you?
I just have like I have pre-recorded things on my phone, and when people come up
Well,
to
no.
me and ask me stupid
No, not
questions, I'm just like
playing
pull up
it.
the recording.
that would be quite a way to approach face-to-face conversation. But I don't know, I'm
That would be
old-fashioned. I still
hilarious.
believe in talking to people, looking them in the eye. But of course, the
I think it
ideas.
would be super funny. I would stare them straight at the eye while I played the video for. But yeah, I mean, I've definitely, I definitely in my professional life, I encounter the same questions over and over and over again, and I've gotten to the point where I have the responses to those questions memorized and done in a way that doesn't make the person asking the question feel like I'm annoyed that they asked. Right. So,
I think it's, let me jump in just very quickly. Folks, this is a stellar example of somebody who is a genuine hero today, somebody who is a genuine advocate for our people, our children, our future, the recapture of our destiny. He saw that there was a need for something in our white positive sphere in service to white well-being. And he said, okay, I'll do that. He didn't need me. He didn't need Jared George. He didn't need somebody to say, Nate, do this. He saw that there was a need, and he had the ability to fill that need, and he stepped up and he filled that need. He got the help of Nathaniel. The FAQs are magnificent, and it is largely, I think they're filling an enormous hole, because I am maybe occasionally wont to be loquacious. I'm never garrulous and never ever prolix, so don't ever say that. But I can be loquacious at times, and these FAQs for folks who are brand new they serve such a significant role, because otherwise they look at the length of the streams, which of course are necessary to be that long, and they're jam-packed full of information, but then they get intimidated. And so N8errific and Nathaniel worked on these. The verbiage is fantastic. They reached out to me to make sure that it comported in all ways with Going Free. They did, and then of course N8errific recorded these with a fabulous pitch and pace, so that everybody listening to it, they just melt into the information that's being shared in a very professional way. This is how we have to be in all areas in service to white well-being. I just wanted to say that, and then we'll keep rolling really quickly. I'll pass it back.
Well, why don't you tell us about your other initiatives then?
All right, so that led into the outreach team, and that happened just because I had been, like many people, doing my own outreach, where I would go to chat rooms and try to talk to people about what's happening in the world. And I realized that, I was getting sidelined by what I believe to be gatekeepers, people in these different chat rooms who are there intentionally to shout down ideas that don't, kind of keep people in the red team versus blue team narrative. And
are you able to speak to what kind, even if it's not specific names of chat rooms or associated with certain content producers, give us an idea of the themes of these chat rooms, the angle, the political ideology?
Well, yeah. So we started with kind of with conservative chats that are kind of to the further right side of conservative. So not far right, but not, the centrist run of the mill conservative. Like, these are definitely conservative chat rooms that are a little bit to the further right.
And what kind of gatekeeping would you encounter there?
So, like, if we tried to say anything about, or if I tried to say anything about, being white positive or opposing anti-whiteism and things like that, it would immediately get kind of linked to the hatred of puppies and things like that. Even though I never mentioned any specific groups of people, it would just get linked to that. But something that I noticed was that if I said something that was maybe like toned down just a little bit more, I would get some organic upvotes and kind of be left alone. And after I would get the upvotes, I would get more attention, I get more interaction and things like that. And I was like, I need to find a way for us to get more upvotes. And so I went to I went to a chat that is white conscious and said, here's what I'm trying to do. And is there anybody in here who would be willing to help me? And one person who is someone who's going free, who's been in the community longer than I have, said, I'll do it. And a lot of other people were like, oh, I've tried to do that, it doesn't work. Oh, they don't listen, nothing happens, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of people were saying, naysaying the idea. But one person was, I'm going to help you do this. And I was like, awesome. And so we started communicating on Telegram. And I had run it by Nathaniel because he kind of became, I would say we're good friends at this point. So I was like, hey, here's an idea I have. What do you think? And he was like, that's awesome. I'm down for it. And so anyway, I started communicating with the one other person on Telegram, and we were kind of talking about what we were going to do. And I was like, hey, do you just want to try it once just to see how it goes? And they said, yeah, sure. And so we went to the chat room together at the same time. And I was like, I'm going to post a comment, and then I want you to upvote it and then post a reply to that comment that's kind of in the same vein. And we did. And it wasn't like an amazing response, but it was easily twice as good as any of the interactions that we had had individually before. And so it was kind of like, we're on to something here. We need to get more people involved in this. And then Nathaniel got involved. And so there was 3 of us. And then we, I guess this is a little dishonest, but we started making multiple accounts each. And once we started doing that, to kind of help the conversation along, we started just being able to take over entire chats with the white well-being narrative. And since then, we since we have more help now, it's way easier. We're still, tiny compared to these chat rooms and the gatekeepers and the power that they have. But we are way more effective. We can go in and take over 4 chats in the course of an hour, and then go on about our day. And whereas before we could maybe take the top of one chat, maybe over the course of an hour and a half. So we're getting way more effective. And we're also having an impact. We've been seeing more and more people post lexicon and MC type posts that have nothing to do with the team. We've been seeing for months now articles coming out that use words that we use in the outreach in the title, and they're words that we never saw before. And we're getting blocked way less. So when we were doing it by ourselves before, our accounts were getting blocked, and we'd have to make a whole new account with a whole new email and everything to go back in. And now we're still getting blocks now and then, but just not nearly as much as we were before. We've also started branching into chat rooms that are not as far right, chat rooms that are more centrist, and we get a lot more pushback there. But we're getting a lot of support there as well. So that's interesting. But we could definitely use more help. And if you want to join in with that, that's the email that I mentioned earlier, the White Wellbeing Outreach Team at protonmail.com. We could still really use more help. We've got 2 American outreach teams and 1 European outreach team. And just all 3 of the teams need more members. And then the core central team could use more members as well. And one thing that's kind of a cool thing that we started doing is the outreach team now has a meme lab where certain members of the team are creating white positive memes, and we're starting to kind of seed them into internet culture. So if you're interested in doing that, same thing, email the outreach team group and come in and help us out if you got good meme ideas or whatever. And before you do, just keep in mind all of our chats, because we have a few chats now, all of them have the same core rules. There is no Ant-Nat posting allowed. There is no Fed posting allowed, and there is no Antiwhiteism allowed. So if you come into our chats, and we pretty much have a zero tolerance policy on this stuff. If you come in and you start posting stuff like that, we're gonna remove you, no questions asked. We're not gonna hold your hand and say, oh well, don't be like this. You've been warned up front. If you come in, this is going free territory here. This is our turf. If you come in, you abide by our rules, and that's the end of the story on that. Should I continue on to the next group, or do you have any questions about the outreach team? Or
I'm sure that you could use different languages, people operating in different languages as well. When you said the European sphere, I'm sure there's a lot of openings there. Raymond, one of our moderators, is putting at intervals your email address in the chat. And when this is posted on our website, theafterparty.tv, we'll make sure it's there as well. Just very quickly, because we do have a few more minutes, everybody please get questions in. Because at the top of the hour, we'll take a few questions, and then we have to go shortly after that. But just very quickly, are there one or two main pushbacks that you always get, regardless of the kind of group you're in, or does it really vary?
It does really vary. Things we get in the conservative chats are, downplaying the idea that things are anti-white, because there are white anti-whites. So we get a lot of that. Like, we'll be like, oh, the anti-whites are really, screwing things up for us, just to paraphrase. And they'll say, oh, well, it's definitely ironic that so many of them are white themselves. And they're not saying it just to make the comment. They're saying it to try and belittle the point that there's anti-whiteism. And so we're constantly like, yeah, well, I constantly say, yes, there are white anti-whites, just like there are anti-American Americans. And that usually shuts them up immediately. And I've started saying, pointing out that there are white anti-whites does not in any way negate the point that almost everything is infected with anti-whiteism now. Like, that's a stupid point to make. Right. I don't tell them they're stupid, but I've started saying, like, that's not a good argument, and it's not funny, and it's not ironic. It's not something to laugh at, that there's a bunch of white people who hate their own people and hate themselves. That's not a joke. So, like, let's stop being glib about our own people's destruction.
Yeah.
So that's a really common one that we get. We also do encounter a decent amount of people talking about, who's really to blame behind the curtain sort of stuff. And we've been saying, yeah, we know who's to blame. Anti-white people. That's who's to blame. Everybody who's anti-white is to blame. And if you're focusing on one particular aspect of who's anti-white, you're gonna miss out. Like, that's not the way to go. So we've been doing that as well. And those are the two main things we encounter. When we go into the centrist places, we encounter a lot of, like, oh, you're obviously a racist. And then we have the normal responses to that about how racist is an anti-white slur, and there's nothing wrong with, supporting well-being for white people. And if you are opposed to well-being for white people, then you're anti-white, sort of stuff. And that's generally how that goes. I do really quickly want to mention the other chats. I won't go into a huge thing, but it's really important. We have the ladies chat. up and running, the White Wellbeing ladies chat up and running. Raymond has the link for that one. And all of these chats, all of our chats are White Wellbeing going free community chats. These are not open to just anybody. Like if you come in there, you got to adhere to White Wellbeing going free rules. We have a ladies chat. I used to be in it, but they kicked me out because I'm not a lady.
Yeah, I was going to ask, did you hand the baton over to a lady since it's a ladies chat?
I did. Yeah. Yep. I made sure I set it up, but I turned ownership over to one lady who's on the outreach team, and I turned lead administration duties over to another lady who is from the community who volunteered. Right now it's a small community, but I understand they're well organized and they're all good natured and they're all going free. So if you are a lady and you want to be a part of the going free ladies chat, there's the White Wellbeing ladies chat. We also have a White Wellbeing community chat. We will probably change the name of that, and it had a different original origin for purpose, but now it's a chat that is restricted to only positive posts about Western kind. It's everything from puppy photos, not puppy photo, but cute animal photos. There we go. Yeah. Anything from cute animal photos all the way to things about architecture and dance and music and just things that are positive. We don't no advertising there. We don't get into the darkness of the world. It's only positive stuff, just because I was like, we need a place where we can go and just not see something bad. Right. So there's that place.
A lot of people drown each other in that. And I'm glad that you did that. And I talk about that on social media all the time. It's so many of these chat groups. I left so many. You go into a chat and you scroll up and it's just every day, anytime you go, it's bad news. It's the world's falling apart. The sky's falling. These other people are doing all these terrible things to us. We hate them, blah, 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 blah. I don't have time for that. Life's too short. I know what's going on, but I don't want to feed that into my consciousness every day. Like once you have that information, hang up the phone and make sure that you're ingesting things that are healthy and positive, not to be Pollyanna-ish, not to deny what's going on, but to build yourself up with enough positive energy and forward thrust so that you can do something, so you don't just wallow in this negativity. I don't understand the people who are addicted to sharing horrible news on social media every day. You're blackening your mind and your soul by doing this.
Yes. So that's what that chat is for. Just if you need a temporary escape, where you just want to see something beautiful or something nice, that's where you go and you do it, and you won't encounter the negative stuff. And if anybody comes in there and tries to use it to spam advertisements for themselves or anything, or comes in there to try and do something negative, you will be removed immediately. And then the last chat, and this is the new one. This one is called WWB TV. It is White Wellbeing TV. And the idea, I don't really know. I don't have a full thought out plan of where it's going to go. But the idea is that I was looking at, screen entertainment. And one of the things that's really strong about it is a lot of people end up watching the anti-white screen entertainment all at the same time. So it becomes kind of an anti-white degenerate community building tool, because everybody watches the show that just came out, they binge watch it or whatever, and then they talk about it at school, or they talk about it at work, or they talk about it, what it becomes the focal point of what's going on. And so I was like, we need something like that where we all kind of get together and watch something, and then we will have a set time where we can get together and talk about it. And it should, one of the ideas was hopefully it would be something where we learn something as well. So we've posted a video up. It's a short, like 10-minute video, and it's a video about it's an instructional video on how to make a certain kind of soup that was made in the 1700s to help feed the poor people in England when they were going through the industrial changes, when people were ending up, not having jobs, not living in rural communities and things like that. And it goes through that history a little bit as well, and shows you how to make the soup. And the idea is that, you know, we'll all watch it over the course of the next couple weeks, and then we'll get together on I believe I set it for July 12th. That day I'll open up the chat and everybody can, you know, say, oh, I tried to make the soup, here's a picture of it, or, you know, this is what I thought about it. Oh, I tried to make it and I failed miserably. Oh, here's what I thought about the history of it. You know, and everybody can just talk about it, so we can actually have like a White Wellbeing going free community get together online that's about something that's positive. And for right now, it's just going to be like once every 2 weeks, there will be a video to watch in your own time. And then we'll open up the chat at the end of that 2 weeks for one day where you can say, oh, well, here's what I thought about that history. And you can just engage the community in communication about what we observed in the video. You know, not to come in and say, oh, the world's ending, but just, you know, have a sort of around the water cooler sort of conversation in the chat room there about the video that we watched. We will do our best to, well, not do our best. We will not be watching anything that is just incredibly anti-white. So if we find something that's just horribly anti-white, we're not going to watch it in there. But if we do watch something that has some anti-whiteism in it, what we will do is we will play Spot the MP. And after watching it, part of the conversation that we'll have is saying this is what we saw that was negative about our people, and these are ways that we could counter the argument or whatever they said in the show with an MC and things like that. So that's the big one that we just started.
These are all great initiatives, and these are the kinds of things people need to learn from each other and to, as you said, combat all of the messaging. The vast majority of messaging that we get in mainstream media, in our day-to-day conversations, in school, is anti-white. And so people need, it's almost like a training, like it's a muscle. You need to exercise and keep exercising. So it sounds like you've kind of planted several seeds where people can engage in that and exercise together. But anyway, Jason, do we have any questions or comments from the chat?
Well, of course we do. And folks, if you have any questions or comments and or financial gifts, please get them in right now. You have Entropy as an option and Cash App. We will be tapping out at exactly 5:15, no later, because we have a hard out. But please do. I want to mention before I jump on over to these questions on that I see on Entropy, and I will refresh Cash App at the same time. Please do. If you are, we have more women in service to white well-being than has ever been in all of the other white sympathetic spheres put together. I know for a fact I've been here the whole time. And sometimes you would think it was a planet where there were no women in white sympathetic spheres. We have the most women. If you're looking for a place to go where you can, and as Mr. George was just mentioning, going free is a practice like working out and eating right. You have to engage in it. What N8errific is talking about here with the other champions in these groups over on Telegram is the workout. It's the proper diet. And this is going to work wonders for your physical, mental, and spiritual health, as it has for so many others, where all of these testimonials come from in words and testimonials given by working class people in dollars. If you are a lady and you're looking for a place, or you are participating already someplace, know this: the only place that you are going to be safe, the only place that you are going to be in the actual state of healing, the only place that you are going to be equipped with the tools that are the only tools that have been demonstrated to work in colossal victory after colossal victory. And I will add on top of that, potential big investors in the OE that I have met with and am meeting with and will meet with in the coming days and next month as well, They have never invested in anything white sympathetic before, not because they're not white sympathetic, but because nothing has ever excited them or made them interested until this. These are successful individuals. They are looking at the things that we are doing. Make no mistake, they're looking at what N8errific is saying right now. And they're saying, if people are doing that and they're not getting paid, 5 and 6 figures, then there's something here. If people are self-starting, they're having these successes, there's something here. Then there's, therefore, in their minds, they think there's something to finance, because if financed, it could go supernova size in nothing but fields of white roses. So if you're a lady and you are looking for a place to be to empower yourself, there's one place only, and it's the ladies' White Wellbeing chat. Everywhere else that you can go on Telegram and all of these other groups are fraught with anti-whiteism of various types, people playing the villain of various types. And these groups specifically, but everywhere, but specifically the FBI is all over Telegram. And the offense now is merely saying anything that is similar or reminiscent of the villain and the various villain types in the anti-white narrative. That is what they are looking for, to start files on you. That could be the beginning of the end of your life, as the country and our countries around the world continue to get worse. So you might think it's cute, you might think it's funny now, but it's not going to be funny the next year and a half, when these groups are all complaining about somebody having their children taken away from them and how unfair it is. It doesn't matter how unfair it is. Don't be dumb. I'll go ahead and tell you that you're dumb if you go into these other chats and these other environments. The only smart thing to do now is to get into the ladies' White Wellbeing chat, to do it quick, and to get out of the others. We have the great, the one and only Mrs. Jess Horst, who financially gifted $25. Let's get a big round of raucous emojis for that champion of White Wellbeing. And she writes here with that $25, a little white heart emoji, and she writes, much love to our folks. Well, thank you so much, dear sister. Much love in return. A big Promethean greetings. We have the wonderful champion, just unbelievably successful, Yiz the Eunuch, financially gifting $5 US. And she writes, 3 cheers for N8errific and all the great work he and the team do. We've all been pushing hard lately, and I see him and his team around the internet spreading white well-being. We are winning. Kip indeed, dear sister. Thank you so much for that grand testimonial to and applauding the plaudits for N8errific and the great work. They all deserve it, and as do you. Let's keep the ground emojis, the raucous emojis going again for Mrs. Jess Horst, who just came back with an additional $50 US financial gift. Thank you so much, sweet woman. She writes, I'm so proud and so hopeful. This is wonderful news. Well, God bless you. And thank you so much for that. It is wonderful news. Looking these people straight in the eye, shaking their hands, things are absolutely happening. People interested that have never been interested before. Yiz the Eunuch, another, this time $3. Thank you, sweet sister. Speaking of funding the professional white well-being activism, I am willing and ready. Doing white positive activism, both online and in person, is my dream job. Do you hear that, folks who are watching? Have heart, will travel, and salute. Thank you so much, Yiz. A salute to you as well, sweet sister. We have the great, the one and only, folks. Get out the raucous emojis for the champion of champions, Final Blossom, somehow living several minutes in the future ahead of us, financially gifting $25. Thank you, brother. And he writes, N8errific deserves significant financial compensation for his work. I could not agree more, Final Blossom, as do you. Thank you for all of your work and every single person who is participating in self-starting. Folks, if we continue to make it happen as we have been, these people who are suddenly wondering, what's this all about? They're seeing the nation burn down and they're wondering, well, what's this all about? This seems different and it's working and people's lives are changing. I shared footage with some of these individuals, and we'll be sharing more of people's lives who have been changed, and it's getting attention. So we are very excited. We have Jonas, who just let us know some news about a tornado. This is very sad. It destroyed a few villages in southern Czechia. So we're sorry to hear about that, the bad weather there. The great Mestizo, who makes magnificent memes. He should get to work right away with making these White Wellbeing memes. He writes here, "Hail Tap, hail N8errific." Indeed, a big Promethean hails to the champion N8errific and all those who work with him. We have a new financial gifter, and as the screen logs up right now, is refreshing over on Cash App. I do want to thank everybody who is here today as we are closing in on the final 3.5 minutes, who financially gifted, everybody who participated in the live chat and who will participate in the thread after we wrap up. And we have here Patrick of Southtown, financially gifting $15. Thank you so very much, dear brother, saying everything that he had to say about the success of White Wellbeing with a financial gift. Thank you so much, brother, and we deeply appreciate it. And all that you have done so new and so much already for White Wellbeing. Looks like that's about it on our questions. I'm going to toss it over to Nate to get his final thoughts, and again to give folks the info of where they can find him. And do support this man, do support the hard work that he is doing, because we would like to end up in a place where those who are active, those who are successful, those who are creative and self-starters and tenacious end up being able to be paid for the work they're doing for White Wellbeing. Nate, the floor is yours.
Well, yeah, I mean, thank you everybody for your donations. You know, I don't really do this for money, obviously. So I appreciate your support anyway, though. And I'm sure Jason and Jared do as well. That it's the people in this community and our people at large that, you know, everybody really is working for here. I hope if you have the time to join the outreach team and help us out over there. If you don't, at least join one of the other chats and you know, partake in the positive White Wellbeing chat or the White Wellbeing TV chat. It should be a good community building exercise. And yeah, I mean, I don't really have a whole lot else to say. Thank you everybody for all the help that you've given me, and I hope I can continue to serve the community.
Thank you so much, dear brother. You are one of my absolute favorites. God bless you, your wife, and your brand new little baby, your children. Mr. George, the floor is yours.
Well, just want to thank you, Nate, for sharing your story. This is the kind of thing that is going to inspire other people to say, well, how can I participate? You know, it's peer to peer. That's how it happens. So thank you for your time explaining all this. I've been keeping an eye on the chat, and people really appreciating it. As I said, the different links as appropriate, as well as the email address, will be on the afterparty.tv for the post for this particular episode. We catalog these shows, the going free shows, and a few more things on the afterparty.tv. My own site is thegreatorder.com, has these shows as well as my creative projects. Music is my main thing, and a new song. We're in the final stretch of a new song coming out pretty soon, so keep an eye out for that. Other than that, Jason, I give it to you to take us out of another episode of the After Party.
Well, thank you so much, good brother. Another magnificent episode of the After Party. It's never going to end until we recapture our destiny, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to keep pushing, and very grateful to all of our wonderful moderators who were with us today, keeping us safe, keeping the chat white positive so that we can project who and what we truly are to our brothers and sisters. And these anti-whites aren't able to get in our way and dissimulate and give an artificial and a false picture of what and who we are. We have the great Rory here coming in at the final seconds. Wonderful champion. He writes with $3 US. I have only ever met one person in the FBI, and she was Russian. She was married to an ex-Marine, however, he says. Thank you, every single one of you who financially gifted, who spoke out tonight, and who are going free in service to white well-being. You are the ones who are making a real difference in the world. You're not talking about hiding. You're not talking about being cravens. You're not talking about dugouts in the hills somewhere, or acting like a villain in the anti-white narrative and running off all of our brothers and sisters with what they believe that those different personas mean. You are doing the right thing. You are projecting your true love, and it is that love that will bring us back in touch and eventually holding with both hands our destiny. God bless every single one of you, and we look forward to seeing you all again next time.